Paul.
Jason.
How are you, buddy?
Wonderful. How about yourself?
Good. I didn't mean to flip the video off that fast, but that's
I
okay.
kind of wondered about that, if that was like your tractor where it just was done.
I'm such a schmuck. Happy Friday, everybody. It's October 7th. Paul and I are doing a special live today. We're going to start doing a lot of impromptu stuff like this because we all have a ton of ideas. You guys are all asking us a lot of questions. We know if we don't do it like literally that day, it gets buried. So I took a break from mortgage, took a break from running SRMD solutions to get on here. And the Outlaw Pro Stock class is about to blow up nationwide. It's going to fill two voids. It's going to fill the void for the 4-1 guys or the light pro guys or the super farm guys that want a component chassis, but don't want to go all the way to big pro stock. So I'm not trying to offend a 5-inch pro stock when I say big pro stock, because I'm a junior pro stock with limited pro. So I just use that. That's my term that I use on there. So the 5-inch pro stock with the Outlaws has been around for a while. I don't know. Maybe if somebody jumps on, maybe 6-7 years.
Probably.
And then the Western Series picked it up last year. I think they had a couple of hooks with it. And what it is, it's a class in between the Big Pro, which is unlimited turbo size, I believe. And this is why I needed Paul on here. And then we did have our Pro Stock Power rankings the other night, too. And Paul's still mad at me for not bringing him on that. But again, that was one of those, hey, Charles, what are you doing tonight? It's like, okay, let's do this.
It's like what we're doing right now. It was just like, hey, let's do this right quick.
And we're not experts, but Paul is very good friends with the Schnitkers and does a lot of stuff with Pro Stocks, makes a lot of parts for Pro Stock tractors at SRMD Solutions, makes a lot of stuff for 4-1s, makes a lot for a lot of pullers, but Paul loves Pro Stocks. And Holes Hours are building a pro or a couple of pros. I can't even keep up anymore, but Paul is helping with that process. So I thought, what a better person to ask Paul than, because the 5-inch Pro Stock has been picked up by I'm going to just keep saying Outlaw Pro Stock.
I was going to say, we need to correct that.
They deserve the credit for it.
They do. They were ahead of the curve.
Yep. They saw that with the limitations. And again, this isn't like go Outlaw Pro, go big pro. This is just, we're trying to be fact finders today. This isn't endorsing either other, because there's certain parts of the country that need this class and there's certain parts that don't. There's always going to be guys like Colin Ross and Brandon Simon and Kevin Schmucker that say, don't give me any rules. I want to go big or go home. And we need classes like that. We don't need 25 of them in the class, but if you could give me 8 to 12 at a Grand National or a Champions Tour or a big Outlaw hook or something like that, that's really, honest to God, all that we need. So I think, I'm going to put a ticker on the bottom, Paul. So you go ahead and start talking. And,
okay.
Let's Outlaw Pro.
Okay. 5-inch Pro.
Is a 5-inch Pro, but we're going to call it an Outlaw Pro.
No, we're going to call it 5-inch Pro.
We're going to call it 5-inch Pro. I thought we wanted to give the Outlaws more credit.
Well, we are Outlaws definitely deserve the credit because they were ahead of this pretty much before anyone else was. So what kind of started all of this was a lot of us get on pulloff.com and you look, and after Enderley, NTPA came out with the region rules for the 5-inch Pro Stock class. So basically, as Jason was saying, you've got the big Pro Stocks, and then you've got the 5-inch Pro Stocks. They are both Pro Stocks. It's one of those. It's another one of those classes. We have like 7 words that will make up the names of every single class within.
We're going to do a show on that too, actually, and we're going to explain.
So
because Paul,
good.
I promise I'm going to let you talk.
You liar.
People. The common fan doesn't know the difference between a hot farm, a super farm, a limited pro, a pro. They just don't. They just go to the poll because it's advertised and that's what they do. And you can go drink some beer and have a good time. And then you have the more casual fan that's a little more engaged in it. But it's funny, when we did the Pro Stock thing the other night, the power rankings, and we didn't mention any of the Outlaw Pro Stocks. All the Outlaw followers were like, hey, why didn't you mention Meddy? And why didn't you mention, Porters? Why didn't you mention Workman or whatever? And I was just like, well, because those aren't big pros. And they're like, well, I thought they were. We call them Pro Stocks. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do something about this. So that's what drove this video today. Anyway.
So all right, you shut up now. So when we're talking about a Pro Stock, the main difference between a big pro and we'll say the 5-inch pro, your big pros, your Schmuckers, your Simons, Jason Rowan, Schnichters, all of those guys, They are allowed to run basically whatever size turbo they want with a limitation of 6 inches on the outlet side of the Charger. So that is 6 inches coming out, going out the stack. That is the only limitation they have.
So there is a limit on the Pro Stock Charger.
Yes, there is a limit on the Pro Stock tractors. Now you can run essentially whatever you want on the compressor side, which is your intake side, but they do have a limit on the exhaust side. And there's basically two main players in the Pro Stock Charger world, and that's basically the only limitation that they have. Now, this 5-inch class has been around with the Outlaws, as Jason said, 6-7 years, maybe something like that. Has been very, very popular out in the Outlaw circuit. And then last year, the Lucas Oil picked up the Western Series 5-inch Pro Stock class, and those had kind of been staying out. You basically had to go west with the 5-inch class. Now NTPA has picked up on the Grand National, or not on the Grand National, on the regional side, a 5-inch class. They're going to come out with. They came out with some rules after Enderley, and what they do is the difference between a big pro mainly is two things: it's charger size and it's an intercooler. So all of your big pros are running an intercooler and an ice box, and basically what that does is there's an ice box, literally an ice box. You see these big pros, they dump some of them 120 pounds of ice in this box, and there's water in there. There's a bunch of water pumps. When they get ready to go, they'll run it up to about 3,500. Some of them are boost activated. Some of them are on a switch. They'll kick those pumps on, and that circulates water through some radiators on the front, up in the front of the tractor, and the air coming out of the Charger, before it goes to the motor, it passes through basically these radiators, cools that intake air down before it sends it into the intake, and helps them make big power. So 5-inch Pro Stocks cannot run a cooler. Big Pro Stocks can. 5-inch Pro Stocks, depending on what organization you're in, they are limited. The common factor is they are limited to 5 inches on the intake side of the Charger. Now, NTPA did come out with a limit on the exhaust side, 5.37 on the exhaust side, so they do have a limit on the out. Outlaws
on the 5-inch one.
On the 5-inch Pro.
Yeah, got it.
On the Outlaws, in their Outlaw pulling series, they run a box charger from Weimer. So it's essentially everybody gets the same charger. You're not allowed to make any modifications. But is that what the NTPA adopted, or no? NTPA does not have a box charger rule at this time. I don't believe they are interested in doing so either. But that basically everybody's limited to a 5-inch inlet on the Charger. Now, as far as cubic inch goes, both classes are allowed 680 cubic inch. Sorry, they both are allowed. All classes are allowed components. All classes are at 10,000 pounds. So they're really
a cooler and a turbo, right?
A cooler and a turbo is essentially the only difference between the two. Now, we talk about the casual observer.
Right.
The 5-inch Pro Stocks, they have been, to answer Alan's question, I don't know if anybody is quite that big, but they're really close on the compressor side. But what the difference are, as far as on the track, I personally this summer, Richard Warren, the Cottonmouth. Richard was a 4-1 puller for a lot of years in the 4-1 class, and this past season, off season, he jumped up to the 5-inch Pro Stock class. Saw him run head to head with the ITPA Pro Stocks a lot this summer. In some cases, he beat some of them. In some cases, he was behind him, but he was not behind very much. And I had never really seen anything other than, I think Tony Wortman is the only other one that I'd really ever seen that he had gone head to head with Pro Stocks. And you really cannot, even to someone like me that I know that it's a 5-inch Pro Stock, I was really impressed with the way these 5-inch Pro Stocks run. And I've seen Meddings run. I've never seen them run in person. And same way with Porters and all the guys that are out there in the Outlaw series. They are just as, from what I talked to the guys, they still have they still have basically the same ride. So you can't really tell sitting in the stands. They have basically the same deal. Now you talk about the difference. 5 inches kind of the in between a Big Pro and a 4.1, that was always kind of, you went 4.1 and then you jump to the Big Pro. Big difference in maintenance and upgrades. Big difference in cost of chargers and pumps and stuff like that. The motors are really not that much different as far as the bottom ends. Yeah, they've got the cranks. Most 4.1s are running billet cranks. A lot of them are running recast blocks. So that's not really that big of a difference. You go from 640 cubic inch to 680 cubic inch. In this 5-inch Pro Stock class, they are allowed up to 680 cubic inch. But if a guy wants to spread that out and jump to the 5-inch Pro Stock class, it's no different than Pro Stocks. There are 640-inch Pro Stocks, full-blown Pro Stocks that are out there that can run with the 680 cubic inch. Is that what you call it?
Is that what, I hear people say small block, is that a small block?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They are a small block. So the other difference there too is it's what the block is based on. So you have the big block John Deere, which was either the 531 or the 619 that came in the bigger tractors that John Deere made there for a while. And then you have some like Robbie Lemke is doing a lot of the small block John Deere's based more on the 466 cubic inch John Deere block that they came out with, whether it be a recast or a billet or whatever. Some guys are still running OEM. Not a lot when you get to that power range are still running an OEM block, but there are some out there. So this 5-inch class, you talk about differences in horsepower. You're going to be somewhere on the order of 1,000, maybe a little more difference cubic or horsepower wise from a 5-inch to a full-blown Pro Stock. That's a very general number. Don't say, oh, well, he's 1,000 horse down. He's probably 1,000, maybe a little bit more. But on the track, you might see him 20, 30 feet difference. You might see him. I've seen a 5-inch Pro Stock beat a 5.7 full-blown Pro Stock this summer. Yeah, the 5.7, they were running an older set of tires, and they just weren't quite up to where they are trying to get to. They're making the upgrades. They just hadn't got there yet. But, yeah, it's very – I mean, they're a heads up. They can run with them. So to address Alan's comments here, so on that 5-inch class, they do – as I was saying, you can take a 4.1 to a 5-inch relatively easy. You really don't have to do much with the cylinder head, the manifold, and the turbo plumbing to get to the 5-inch class and be a competitive tractor. Now, what Alan is saying here is that now that this class has become more popular and there's more places where guys can run it, this is where you're going to start seeing guys putting more into the cylinder head, the manifold, and start tweaking that class to become a front runner. Right now, I mean, it's not to just jump over to a 5-inch Pro Stock from a 4.1, or even I know for a fact that there are guys that have full-blown Pro Stocks. They may not have been class leading, up there in the winner's circle, the Pro Stocks, but they are names that you will recognize that have put orders in for 5-inch Pro Stock class. Now the NTPA is going to carry this. This 5-inch Pro Stock class is going to get really big really quickly. And I don't want to say it's going to be like 4.1 big, but when you look at full-blown Pro Stocks versus 5-inch Pro Stocks, you're not going to see, a ton of Pro Stocks and maybe a few 5-inch. You're going to see those classes because that 5-inch is a middle ground between a 4.1 and a full-blown Pro. You're going to see those numbers, I think, kind of level out because there's guys that do want to go up from a 4.1, but that jump to a full-blown Pro Stock, that's a big commitment, not only financially, but from a time perspective. There's a lot more upkeep on a full-blown Pro Stock. You have to watch things. They talk about, on these big classes, on like your Champ Tour and your NTPA Grand National stuff, that you hear guys say, well, it's set on kill. It's set on kill. That mainly refers to timing. And there are a lot of those guys that if they are going to a Champ Pull or a Grand National, they're going to turn that pump timing. They're going to set it up their ways, and they're going to be running on that edge. If they know they're going to hit something closer to home where they're not going to have that level of competition, they'll back that off a little bit to make sure that those things live. Doesn't mean they don't check them out as much as they do on a regular series schedule, but they will back them off because you start running that timing a little bit higher. You run the risk of burning pistons, and it's just a lot harder on things, especially charger stuff. And at this day and age, parts, are an issue across the board, you've got to really watch it. But this 5 inch is a really good intermediate step for a guy that wants to go from 4.1 to Pro Stock. He can run 5 inch Pro, and now that he's got places out east and places out west where he can go, and all points in between. And I know there are other organizations that are seriously considering a 5 inch class, more on the state level. This is going to be one that you're going to see a lot of tractors jump into this class. And everybody, you start talking about, well, do we need more single charger classes? I'm sorry, but if you don't like another Pro Stock tractor or a smoke blowing tractor, come on. Yes, is it similar to a 4.1? Yes, but it's a whole lot different than a 4.1 as well.
Yep.
Casual observer, they're still running down the track 32, 34 miles an hour, and they're doing that. Alan, as far as the 680 inch IH, I am not aware of anybody that is doing that. I know of one or two, but most guys are running the 672 cubic inch. And, everybody says, well, 680 versus 672, 8 cubic inches. Is it something different? Yes. Is it that much? You can overcome that.
Somebody's checking in from California. I'd be curious to know who's watching right now. If you could just type in where you're watching from, I'd be curious, because like I said, this was just, hey, Paul, we need to do this soon so we don't forget about it. And he's like, all right, let's do it at 10 a.m. today. I'll make a hole in my schedule. And I'm like, yep, I will too. So it's all good.
But yeah, you're this one, especially, I didn't really think that it would get the attention that it got. And like I said, a lot of it, you go to the pulloff.com, and that thread has just been going constantly since this rule set came out of Enderley. And I really think that this class is going to get really, really big really quickly.
Yeah, I do too. I'm trying to figure out, I guess it's good discussion. That's kind of why we did our little, top 10 power rankings the other night, just to get people talking about the sport. And Pro Stocks have always been popular.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we see more? Why do we see more single charger classes versus multi-turbo setups in the tractor world? Charles, Paul, why don't we see more diesel supers? Because you talk to people, you can make power, and it's, I don't know. Tell me, do you have any feeling on that? Because I know you help out with Bernie a little bit, and you've been talking to Meisinger. Why don't we see more? Why don't we see more? Maybe a convergence back to the diesel super or the light super. Is it because of the alcohol? Is it because of the diesel, or what do you think?
I think a lot of it has to go down. Diesel supers there for a while they're running such high boost pressures inside these motors that they were having a lot of trouble. And I've talked with some diesel super pullers, and first it was they were beating the bearings out of them, and they've got that taken care of. And now then it was you were running all this boost pressure, and then it was pistons. They're literally pushing wrist pins through the pistons because of the pressures that they're running in these motors. When you start looking at buying chargers, well, if you're going to buy a 4.1 charger, you know what you're going to spend on a 4.1 charger. Well, then some of these chargers setups that these 4.1s are running, they're running somewhere around there, a 4.1 on each charger, and they stage them so a little bit bigger here, and then they go down as they get closer to the bottom on the motor because they're driving them a little bit harder. But you're buying one charger versus 4 or 3, or in some cases there's still some guys on the state level that run a 2 charger setup. So I think the number of chargers that you have to buy and the boost pressures were climbing faster than what the durability of the parts. So if you're a state level guy and you start saying, hey, I want to go bigger, I want more power, well, they think more fuel, more air. Yep. Problem is that you will push that motor to the point where you'll start having issues with bigger and bigger, and you're going to start finding the next weak point. So it may be something in the motor. Maybe you have issues with pistons, burning pistons, or maybe you are beating bearings out of the motor. We get the motor to hold, and then if you're not component, which there are still plenty of these tractors that are still out there that are maybe in the barn that have cast rear ends. Then you start getting into driveline. You're going to start pushing to where you start having driveline failures. Well, then you've got to make that jump to a component, and it just kind of compounds itself. When you come out with the single charger classes, you buy one charger, one pump. Of course, you're only buying one pump anyway, but they become a lot easier to work on. You start talking about turbo plumbing, staging the chargers and everything. It's a big investment. Well, investment is a way wrong word to use as far as oil is concerned, but you have to lay out a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at, hey, I can do one charger, or I can do it with multiple chargers. Those guys that stuck with the diesel supers now, they still have issues, and they're pushing them really hard. You think of like your top run of diesel supers. Every one of those guys will say, yeah, we've had to do these things, but they will also tell you that, hey, we haven't really had much in the way of charger issues for a while. Or, we've got the bearing situation seems to have we've kind of caught up with that, and it's not so much of an issue. Doesn't mean that they pull them out of the trailer, pull them, and then throw them back in the trailer and everything's all good. They're monitoring a lot of things on these tractors, and to the point where, some of them, they can tell you what the horsepower is off the track. They've got monitoring systems. They can tell you, hey, this is what my number on the dyno was. This is what it's making on the track. We know that everything's good. Hey, we're 300 horse down. What do we got going on? Do we have a rings starting to go a little bit? Do we have an injector issue? They're monitoring this stuff. Whereas before, chargers, pumps, throw it on there, hope she holds, let's go.
Yep. No, and that was the mentality for years with that. So I put Chris's question up there, and Wegel had the Jolly Green Giant 4.1. Him and Mitch are building a 5-inch Pro. Like the biggest thing I saw in our class this year, Paul, and I've seen the last 2 or 3 years in the 4.1 has been tire. We had the fatties, the India parks, this level of parks. I really feel like I got my pro pullers figured out about halfway through the season. What do we call mine? I forget.
Whole shots.
Whole shots, yeah. I feel like I had my whole shots figured out about halfway through the year. But tire is a big thing. I've never thought of a tire rule. That's I've never seen that before. But the question, Chris's comment makes me think, what's the difference between the Weimer 5.0 that's in the Outlaw versus this NTPA, if you will, rule, where they're allowing a bigger stuff? Do you know how big of it is? It close or not?
So, yes. So what it is pretty well all of your engine builders, it doesn't matter what class it is, they will, unless they have a box charger rule, which basically means I order a 5-inch Pro Stock charger, I'm going to run Outlaw. Jim will send you a charger that is sealed and it is ready to go. This is what everyone gets. And the thing to add to this too, that a lot of clubs are doing now, is they have a claim rule. So I'm Chris Wagel, I'm going to build a 5-inch Pro Stock. I called Jim at Weimer because that is the charger that they have said, this is the charger that you're going to use for this class. He sends me a charger for the Outlaws. I bolt it on. Now, if you have a claim rule, you can say, well, Chris keeps beating me every week, and I want to know, has he modified his charger? Because with a box charger rule, you are not allowed to modify that charger, and that's what a lot of them do. They'll go in, maybe they'll change the housing or a little bit, or do something to put a different wheel in it or something like that to get just that little bit more air. With the Outlaw charger rule, a box charger rule, you are not allowed to make any modifications to that charger. And if you have a claim rule, so Chris is beating me every week, I'm going to run down to the end of the track and I'm going to have, it's all set up prior to that. And you say 5-inch Pro Stock charger is, I don't know, say $10,000. And you say $10,000 plus $1,000 to buy his charger. So you stand there at the end of the track with a check and you say, here's my check. I want to buy his charger. Take it back. Once it's cooled down, he unbolts that charger. He gives it to you and says, here, you've got my charger now. If you don't make any modifications to it, I can bolt it on my tractor and I can go out. And if he's made modifications to it, then I should, by thought, which there's a lot of other variables, but I should be able to run just like he did. And When I do that, Chris Wagel takes that check, cashes it, and he says, calls Jim, or in most cases, the organization has a couple of chargers because you don't want to, be in the middle of a 2-night hook and he doesn't have a charger.
Right.
He buys a charger. Outlaws give him a box charger. He bolts it on. He goes pulling. Everybody has the same charger. So that's where a box charger rule comes in. And that's what a lot of people have, they're going in and they're finding these things, and these engine builders, that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to make their customers run as good as they possibly can. And they will make they'll put different wheels in them. maybe different housing, tighten them up a little bit, and they take off and they run with them. With a box charger rule, you are not allowed to make any modifications to that charger. Everybody is the same level playing field. And if there is a question about it, I can go buy somebody's charger if he continually beats me. And then you can.
And I know that, all of us get most of our, our information from pulloff.com. Let's be real about all the complainers. That's where most of the whining is, in the complaining and the thoughts or whatever, because that's the one forum that we've just been going there for years until we have frank discussions like this, in public. I know there's a lot of stuff behind doors between Rich Ryan and Mears and Holcomb at Outlaws, the tech and stuff like that. But the one thing that, the Outlaws just got hammered. Doug Roberts just got hammered for years for putting limitations on these classes. And you got to go back now and almost pat the guy on the back, because the Outlaw modified class is awesome.
Yep.
And they got hammered there. Yeah, it's kind of like the light mods, if you will, what the NTPA tried to do. And then from that national organization standpoint, I don't know if anybody owns west of the Mississippi better than the Outlaws do. So, but from a fan perspective, like when we start doing social media like this, and we, Beer Money Pulling Team, have put a way bigger spotlight on the Outlaws to everybody to the east, you start getting questions. Well, what is the difference between an Outlaw Pro or a 5-inch Pro versus this? This has been fun, Paul, for me to kind of see it come full circle from that point of view. But I guess where I was going with this is NASCAR is still the big dog, right? I mean, yeah, they're not packing 100,000 seat stadiums anymore, but they're still getting 60,000 people. And NASCAR still has that strong following. NASCAR has boxed everything, right? I mean, they got everything boxed, and I've never ever thought of a tire rule before. We'd have to run a certain brand of tire, but like monster trucks have to run a BKT tire. And yes. I'm sure there's some sponsorship involved, and I'm sure Weimer does some sponsorship. I know Hart's had the Super Farm box turbo for the Outlaws. I think that's at 7. I know Weimer's got the 5-inch for Outlaw.
Quite honestly,
guys will say, "Oh, it takes the ingenuity." No, you still got to drive them. You still got to read the track. It's like the Super Farm class. I want like what I love about 4-1, Paul. I go anywhere in the nation and hook 4-1. That's it. And that's amazing. And that's why I went from Hot Farm to 4-1, because I was so mad at the Super Farm class for everybody having their own little 1/2-inch rule, and it just pissed me off. And I'm like, I'm just going 4-1. And I pushed the Outlaws for years. I'm like, guys, because they had a box charger rule, and it was not a Hartz turbo. I'm positive. I think it was a Precision, maybe. Does that feel right? And then you had to have a smaller pump. And I wasn't going to do that, but I wanted to go. I wasn't going to change a pump and turbo to go pull with the Outlaws 5 years ago. But now, we've seen a lot of crossover, and it's good for the sport, because at the end of the day, everybody watching this video right now is a puller or a fan, and that's ultimately why we do what we do. We need associations to put rules together, have insurance, and make sure nobody dies. But the rest of it's done by us, the puller and the promoter. And that's my little soapbox. So I guess we shouldn't be scared, but we've had Colin Ross on the show, and he's like, I don't want any rules, or I don't want any limits. Well, he's running unlimited super stock with the alcohols now. Maybe that's where that tractor belongs. That is where that tractor belongs, because they're doing stuff now, and I'm hearing some rumblings of, that's not even a diesel super anymore. It's it's got some stuff, and it's all rumor mill stuff. But
well, and a lot of that stuff originates.
Do you want to tell Brandon Simon that he can't? And Charles put them 1 and 2 in the Pro Stock Power rankings, basically because they don't care. I mean, it's not they don't care, but it's set on kill every single time. But that's why Charles put them 1 and 2.
And those guys, they know, if I don't care who it is, if they're in the top of that point standings in Grand National or PPL, they know that they've got to run that ragged edge. Now, do some guys go a little bit more? Yes, because that is how, that's how they run. But to go back to what Chris is saying here, the tire deal is no different than the charger rule. The chargers, just like Alan said earlier, there's continuous advancement in these chargers. And I can tell you right now, I've talked to a couple of charger manufacturers. They would love to see more box chargers, because then they can catch up, because they're always having to chase a little more here, a little more there. If they could make 15 or 20 chargers for an organization, they would love that, because they're like, okay, now we can get this up here, and they can start filling some of these guys that, hey, my charger went out. Well, they say, well, we've got an update coming out, and you're constantly having to buy the latest upgrade, and you're having to do this. Those turbo manufacturers will continue to do that, just like your tire manufacturers. The tires, it was way back in the day, it was Firestones, and then it was Pro Coolers, and then it was the 10 plies, and it was the 12 plies, and they came out with 14 plies, and then Mitas jumps in and they come out with a whole another deal. Then you start looking at not only the cut of the tire, but the number of bars on the tire, and what is the diameter. They all have rules, and then you've got the India Parks, and it's constant. It's just like a Charger, and so guys are going out, and in some cases, these tires are proving that, hey, you want to run towards the front, this is what you need to do. Well, then you're buying another set of tires, and you just got a set of tires that you've run for maybe less than a season, and now you're having to get new tires to be able to stay up there. And a lot of these rules are meant to keep that cost, at a relative flat line, because
it's not cheap.
You don't want to keep having to buy all this stuff all the time.
Yep. No, I don't know the right answer, but I do know that I love the sport, and I want it to continue to thrive, Paul.
Yep.
And whether it's racing, whether it's pulling, whether it's mud bogging, demo derby, wherever, guys are always going to want to do it. And then you can say you just want to go out there and be there, but that's crap. After the first couple times of getting spanked, you're like, nope, what's it going to take? Then you call your engine builder, you start talking to people, and I was told I needed to have India Parks on this year, or those whatever Indian Parks, but I was happy with the whole shot. Took a while. We tried 2 different cuts on them. We finally got them figured out. I feel like I said, Taylor put a new cut on them, and the back half of the season was more successful from the front half of the season. But I guess I'm not scared of limits, Paul, because you still got to drive them. You still got to pick the gear. You got to weight them, tire pressure, pick the spot on the track. And we still can have beautiful machines and interact with the fans and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you have to, with tractor pulling, there are so many variables, whether it be charger, pump, cam timing, pump timing, tires, gear, everything. There's so many variables. We're saying when they put these limits in, they're trying to maybe make it to where one variable is not the outlying, like, this is what you got to have.
Yep.
And it's just like Roger said here. On the flip side, the problem with the box turbo on small motors, they
like
are not one
466
size fits all.
Like a 466.
Correct. So,
what do you mean by that? That statement doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So on a small motor, a box turbo, the one thing that I think Roger is trying to say here is that they can't just come in and say, this charger is going to go. This is the one you want to go. They need to make sure that the charger that they pick is going to be on par, because if you get limited on a charger, in some cases, guys are going to take a step back. You have to get a charger that is not such a huge drastic jump back or even ahead, because they have to make sure that you're not resetting everything and everybody's got to go back to the dyno and the class starts over. A lot of these charger rules, if they're not set up from the get-go, that's where it's hard to implement. It's, in my opinion, it's damn near impossible to implement a charger rule after a class has already started. You have to think long-term about some of these classes. Yeah. And that's where this 5-inch class comes in, because they're saying this is a new class for the NTPA. Outlaws have had theirs set for a while. PPL, they set their rules. That was set from the get-go. Yes. So this is what Roger's saying here is if you get a charger. And
Alan Ulmer mentioned this.
Yes. You get a charger, it can set you back to where you're starting all over again. Now, most of these tractors have been around for a while. They're not such a huge deal. And a box charger that is instated after a class is established, that is a very, very slippery slope. But if you set it from the outset, then you're on a lot better setup. Again,
and this is just rumor mill from past years, but I was always told, like, when Doug, and I'm always going to go to Doug Roberts for these box turbo rules, because that's just kind of feel like where it all started. And if I offend anybody else that did box turbos back in the day, I'm sorry. But I always heard about Doug, and I haven't heard like Hartz would send a turbo, Precision would send a turbo, Weiber would send a turbo, and they'd dyno them at a place that had no skin in the game. And then they would look at, like, they would pick the average over that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was always told.
Yes.
It's nice to see Roger on here because he's been a 466 Outlaw puller, 85 Limited Pro. God, we're going to make another show on that, just on naming classes.
Yeah.
But he's jumping into 4-1 now, which I'm pumped for because he's a good dude. And I know his stuff's going to run awesome. Not that we need more 4-1s to beat our ass, but he'll be there. So it's all good.
But yeah, that's that's where the box charger rule is part of it. Now, there's another one here, comment. Dan's different rims. So yeah, that's where that's the problem.
Rim rims, because guys are buying wider rims and straight. Mm-hmm. There are some 20.8s now that look like 24.5s. Exactly. I was doing the California show the other night, promoting Madera, California, because I'm going out there October 21 and 22 for the Golden State Invitational. And I was flipping through photos, and I don't, see those tractors regularly. And it was one, I think, Kuza Super Farms. I'm like, oh, that's a hot farm. No, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? The 20.8s are really stretched out now. It looked like 24.5. So, and maybe that's, and to Wiggles' point, I mean, I love the comments because I want to know what you guys are thinking. And it's good for, and I know a lot of people are going to watch this afterwards because, like I said, we put this up one hour. Hey, let's do this at 10 today. Okay, bang. So I know a lot of people working, and I should be working, and Paul should be working. We need to wrap this up. My emails are blowing up, but I need to, the Mitas. That was the thing. Remember back at the Louisville or the Mac Daddy farm show, I would call it. The Mac Trailer one.
The truck show.
Robbie Russell had the Mitas and somebody else. Norton. They were too wide, I heard. Again, all rumors. You were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was. So basically what it amounted to was there was two sets there. One was just a little bit too wide, so they took it out in the parking lot, and they basically got them down to where they needed to be. That was the first set of Mitas 24.5s that we saw. Of course, they've been in the 30.5 game forever. But, you're seeing that. And when those – I don't know that Louisville, the truck show, really gave us a good impression of what they were going to do. But in the outdoors – guys, once they got them figured out, as Chris was saying, Mastersons were running them, and they got something figured out, whether it was tires or what. But the tire game is no different than the Charger game. I mean, there's always improvements being made, and then you have to buy sometimes, in some cases, a set of rims to go with them. So it gets pretty crazy. But to answer that question,
Ulmer, get back to work. This one's great. Yeah, you can. Richard Warren's doing it right now.
You can run a cast. You do not have to run a component, and this one's going to be a big. There is some other rules that are out there. If you look at some of the other stuff, essentially it's very similar to a Pro Stock, with the exception of the Charger and the intercooler. But the next question is, can they cross dress? And the answer is yes, they can.
Oh, a 5-inch? Yeah, they can. I knew that. Yep.
Yes. So that's gonna set off a whole nother thread on pull off. But
and what we mean by cross dressing, the curtains don't have to match the carpet. You can have any.
You can run an IH block in a green green tractor, because on a component, like I said, it is, but they can do that. And yes, they do have to do that.
I'm going to show. Okay, so I'm on outlawpulling.tv. I don't have it on the screen yet, but Richard Warren jumped in the Pro Stock, Sarah, and I want so you know what we're talking about.
Yep.
We're not.
So the backstory on this chassis is this is Rodney Schnichter's old Meltdown chassis. This is the cast rear chassis that Rodney ran for years before he jumped to component. So that's why it's got the 88 series sheet metal on it. And Richard was a longtime 4-1 puller and jumped into that 5-inch class this year.
And he was first took in the class, I think. There's Lane. I got to find this here. Give me a second. I'll scan this around a little bit. If you guys got any more questions, throw them into the comments for Paul, and we'll ask that the best we can. But again, we're trying to educate, honestly, with this. We all love the sport. We want to see it last forever. It's always going to be expensive no matter what we do. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, it's a scale thing. I mean, if you want to pull in a smaller class, your expense is not going to be as high.
Yeah.
If you want to pull in a big Pro Stock class, guess what? You better have that checkbook ready to go.
Appreciate it.
I'll kill some of the sound here until we get, but I'll turn on the sound when like Richard pulls another Pro. Yep. But yeah, the average fan doesn't know the difference between.
And the other thing The other thing about it too is if you look at these 5-inch pros, so I'll use Meddings for an example. Those tractors are very well known. One of them is one of the old Justison tractors, and one of them is it's Lance Little's old tractor. So when they go out and whoever it is, they get invited to Louisville, they can run. They'll run their tractors. They'll just bolt on a bigger charger and they'll put an intercooler on it if they want to. So
here's Richard Warren. This is an ag chassis.
To run that Weimer turbo. This is Richard Warren,
That announcer.
the
is freaking
Cottonmouth,
awesome. Paul.
yeah, he's
out of
spot
Stock
on.
City, Missouri.
Cottonmouth 5.0.
That's a good pass, Unionville, Missouri. Make some noise.
So I love Richard. I've known Richard for a long time. Him and Waggle were my buddies back in the day. I miss those guys. So they're still my buddies, but I hung out with them more because I was at the same polls with them back in the day. So that was a lot of fun. But that's an ag chassis 5.0. You know, so I do wish our classes didn't look so similar. I mean, I don't know there's a way around that. You know, a super farm looks like a limited pro looks like a, you know, besides the asset of a pro, you know, you can tell a component chassis or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the other day we're trying to put on a good show for the fans and give them something to cheer about, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And that, like I said, that tractor right there, I saw it beat a component 5.7 charger this summer. And like I said, that's where it goes to show that it's in setup and it's in some other things. But
I'm going to jump on the Outlaw app and see how he finished that night. And then we need to wrap this up. I got to get back to work, but thanks for doing this today, Paul.
No problem. It is a Friday. So, you know, we got that going for us. Just means we have to work into the weekend more. No big deal.
Say, it's what I do.
You just transfer it. It's all they all end in day, and if you just put work in front of them, that's what it is. It's another work.
I think Jimmy Brackett won that night. Pro Stock. Yeah, Hillbilly Express was 342. Wide Loose Deer Pedley's was 331. Bulletproof Buck, that's Medding, was 331. Richard was fourth at 327 out of 12. Mm-hmm. So that's with his ag chassis, guys. So I don't know. Maybe I should. Well, no, I like 4.1. Maybe I should go.
I mean, I'll just say it's an easy change to make.
I got to redo my rear end and transmission anyway this winter, so maybe I should.
This is true. You really wouldn't have to change much in that, right?
Okay. So, but I want to so I'm going to show you. So, again, let's see. Richard had very first hook. So sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Honestly, it seems like the earlier hooks have been doing better with the bigger horsepower classes. But I just to show you a comparison then. Well, here's Pedley. They got second or third. Pedley got second. They had that thing after Ravenna, man. They were running hard. Meddings won the points.
So one of the things to mention while you're looking for that is the one big difference between a 5-inch pro and a big pro is I don't want to say they'll live, but they're a lot easier. No tractor pulling stuff is easy on parts. No. But if you look at a big pro versus a 5-inch pro, they are a lot easier on parts. They just don't have to put as much into them as far as maintenance as they do.
Chief Iowa, pay attention to this one, fans. You could shake it up in about the next 15 seconds.
You're screaming into the microphone.
Yeah, that's the mic, the sound sucks there. That's the place the guy went that.
Woo! That was
good. But fans, that's a 5-inch Pro Stock. Those sound awesome. I mean, yeah. If you said to me, you could go to one poll this year, would you rather watch big pros or 5-inch pros? I'm going to say big pros just because I am. But this is that's my point. That's a 5-inch pro, and they sound freaking good, and they put on a good show.
I would, if somebody said, "Hey, do you want to drive a 5-inch pro?" I'm like, "Yep."
Medding still owes me a ride on Bulletproof Buck. So
well, maybe he'll let you drive it to the line when they're pulling it with the Kubota or something.
Oh, I got to be more specific when people say, "I'll let you drive my tractor someday."
Yes, because I have been told there's a yellow tractor, a yellow big pro up in
Yoder's, just say it.
Yeah, in Shipshawana that he said something similar. He's like, "I'll let you warm it up." No, he didn't really mean that. He's like, I'll let you pull me in somewhere where it's warm, and then we'll warm it up.
Yeah, we'll put it in. We'll put a heater on it. So
yeah, Russ is kind enough to do that for me.
Mark Ham Pedley has some of the best wheelies in the class. Now they got that thing dialed in. Thank you for watching today. We're going to do more of this stuff. Beer Money, just get some experts on. Paul works a lot on tractors and knows what's going on. Knows some of the back talkings with some of the builders and the turbo people and chassis builders and stuff behind the scenes, and just answer good, honest questions about that. And I enjoy all of you jumping on here today to really explain the difference between a 5-inch Pro Stock and a big Pro Stock, for lack of better terms.
And if anybody has questions about something else in a class or whatever, shoot us a message, and we'll try to dissect it. We'll get people on here that know a little bit about it and see if we can educate a little bit, if nothing else.
So with just real quick, what does SRMD do for pullers? Paul, if I've never seen Paul Romack or heard of SRMD Solutions, give me your 1-minute commercial of what you can provide for the truck and tractor pulling world. And
we are a full service engineering and machining company. Myself and my business partner have been in business since 2013. We just started helping pullers here and there with, hey, can you make this flange, or hey, can you do this? And it's developed into billet heads for customers. As far as some engine builders, we're going to be heavily involved with the new Holzhauer Pro Stock that's coming. Should be having some stuff here before too long. A lot of pistons. We help a lot of people with different stuff, all the way from antique tractors, garden tractors, all the way up to Pro Stock, Super Stock diesels. Just a little bit of everything. We're not saying we can do it all, but if you got any questions about anything, you can get a hold of us and we can look at it. And if we can't do it, maybe we can help steer you to someone who can. We just like to be a resource for that. And then that is the pulling side. We've kind of taken on a life of its own, but our core business is automation. So if you have any automation needs, whether you've got an old process in your facility that needs some automation, that is what our core business is. This pulling stuff was just kind of a side item. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own, but our automation business is, we've got controls staff. We do all of our design on computers. We've got Mastercam. You can check out our Facebook page, see some of the stuff that we do. And we've got a website out there, but we're getting ready to build a new facility. We just poured walls for it yesterday for the foundation. So going to be expanding, and hope to be around to help people for a long time.
Awesome. And Paul's honest as the day is long too. So that's when he said, if I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can. That's the same thing I say in mortgage every day. Tell me your story. If I can't help you, I know somebody who can help you. So Paul's cell phone number is down there on the screen. Thanks for watching. And Paul, hang out with me for just a second after I end this. But thanks for watching our educational video tutorial brought to you by Paul Romack from Lomax, Illinois. No, you're not from Lomax. Yeah, you are. You know what town you live in again?
What? Hell no. I'm from Dietrich, Illinois.
Dietrich, Illinois. Who's in Lomax?
That's where our shop is.
Oh, okay. I can't remember at all. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.
See you.